morning. Thank you. Yes, I like the classroom. Welcome to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name's Michael Cox. I'm your worship associate today, along with a cast of several. And I want to start out by thanking Tom. That was great, Tom. Thank you for getting us going. That was great. And he'll be performing a couple other tunes as we go. And I want to thank the Bono and Davidson family. They seem to, where's Marshall? Where's Marshall? He's not going to dance or something? So anyway, we got the family here today to help us do this service, so really appreciate that. And I want to thank again Rhonda and Carolyn for doing all the sound and the video and live stream. It really lets people have access to the service who might not be able to come. And of course, to all the people who helped set this up and keep this going. It's quite a task. So a couple of quick announcements. Christmas Eve, looking for musicians who might want to play during the Christmas Eve service. So if you are interested, please contact me or Reverend Zachary so you can come together to do some music on Christmas Eve. Won't be able to sing, but we can do music. Maybe if it's nice weather, can go outside. So I just wanted to give a little context behind the title for the service today. It's called Code Red for Humanity. And a couple months ago, the UN released its latest climate report in advance of the Glasgow Climate Summit that just ended. And in characterizing the report, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the working group's report was nothing less than a code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. In the report itself, it said the scientist who wrote the report said it's unequivocal that humans are the main contributor to climate change. Unequivocal. For those scientists or people who've worked for scientists, to them come up with those kind of words, that's like they would not agree that the sun's coming up unequivocally tomorrow. But they did agree that humans were the main cause of climate change. To me, that says something. So today, we're going to hear several voices that talk about their perspective on climate change and tell their stories about how they're involved and how they encourage us to be involved. But before we start, let's pause. Whoopsie. Got a little too close there. Let's pause to acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish tribes. The homelands of the Squamish, Duwamish, Klallam, and Chimicum people were ceded under the duress under the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We are grateful guests on these lands and affirm indigenous sovereignty, both past and present. So for our offering today, since we're not going to be passing the basket around, Jane Martin has created 2 boxes in the back there. So if you do have an offering you'd like to place today, you can put those in the boxes on your way out. That would be great. Or if you're at home and you'd like to donate, you can go to the website, click on the donate button, and provide your donations that way. So Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty of who and how you love, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty of who and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. You're invited to join us today and always with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands.
So against this code red for humanity, there's a lot of despair. And as inhabitants of the earth, we all witness the effects of humanity's actions on our planet, our home. Through all the denials of prominent figures and the heads of state, we see the worsening cumulative effects of our collective activities and choices. As one of nearly 8 billion people on Earth, each person can feel insignificant in our effort to help restore our planet. I see that feeling in those that I love. But I'm here to say that your efforts are not futile. Indeed, you have more power and influence than you may realize. Even if your financial circumstances don't allow you to be carbon negative in this economy because of the lack of choices, don't despair. You can all make a difference. So how can we fight this sense of helplessness when we know that our current climate crisis stems from many causes and the actions of nations which justify their inaction by saying that it will irreparably harm their economies and the political fortunes of their leaders? Well, more and more nations are waking up to the harsh reality that economies and regimes cannot ultimately survive when the planet itself is in peril. So while we have been poisoning the earth since the Industrial Revolution, the solutions today have to acknowledge that we cannot change the past, and we have to use the modern conveniences and modern techniques of our choices today and overcome our addiction to the convenience of modern life. So where to find hope? And what can you do? Well, we must all recognize that as Americans, we have extraordinary power to affect individual decisions and our consumption habits. Why? We're only 4% of the world's population, but we produce 15% of the world's CO2. Our economy is driven not by what we produce, by what we consume. 70% of our $24 trillion economy is based on our spending. And that gives you a very powerful choice in changing how you treat the earth. We can use this power to influence change. When you click on the Submit Order or Buy Now button, the whole world has to react to fill that order. Our individual consuming habits have a worldwide impact on economies and on the environment. Recognize that when one of us makes a decision as a consumer in the US, that decision has the same environmental impact as 9 people in India and 2 people in China. Our responsibilities in harming the earth is matched to our power to protect it and to help it. So while nations like China produce twice the total amount of CO2 as the US as a country, per person, only the fossil fuel producing countries of Saudi Arabia and Kazakhstan produce more than the US. China isn't even in the top 10. India is not in the top 20. If we feel guilty or responsible for the US's role in climate change, perhaps we should. But as Unitarian Universalists, we need to live up to our principle to take action and to take good care of the earth that is our home. We are not insignificant and helpless in this battle against climate change. We can use our extraordinary power to influence change through our personal consuming habits and behaviors. We can use our consuming habits and through which we have more influence on global warming than the citizens of essentially any other country. And businesses and countries listen when consumers act. So what can we do? First, reducing and rethinking what you consume. Not buying something new has a much greater environmental impact than buying something made of recycled or reusable material, because that new thing does not need to be made or shipped. Number 2, reusing what we already have and sharing with our neighbors through free cycle and similar programs. The earth has already paid the price for one item. It shouldn't have to pay it again if that item is still around and can be used again. These pages are from a batch of paper that I reclaimed in 2003 from an office before double-sided printing was in vogue. And we have thousands of them still at home. Consume only what can truly be recycled and composted. Paper, cardboard, the non-shiny variety, metal and glass are about the only things that can be recycled today. Find alternatives to plastics. And finally, do your part by stripping the packing labels and the tape from the things that can be recycled so it doesn't render them inoperable or unusable in the recycling stream. And lastly, vote. And contact the people that have been elected to represent you, even if you didn't vote for them. From my time meeting with officials in Olympia and in Washington, D.C., I know that they can be heavily influenced by direct communications from their constituents, especially in the modern era. So what you can do will make a difference. You wield more power to alter the effects of climate change and consumer behavior than anyone else on earth. Feel that power and use it. On behalf of the earth, our home, thank you. Please join me in the chalice affirmation. And our lack of microphones, headsets means I'll do that from up here today. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are all one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
For our call to worship, I would like to share with you excerpts from the Haudenosaunee's Thanksgiving Address, Greetings to the Natural World, which comes from the indigenous people who inhabit a central region of New York State. I was introduced to this address when reading a beautifully written book by Robin Wall Kimmerer titled Braiding Sweetgrass. It is written as a call and response. I will read a passage and you will respond with, "Now our minds are one." Today we have gathered and we see that the cycles of life continue. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. So now we bring our minds together as one as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. We give thanks to all the waters of the world for quenching our thirst and providing us strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms: waterfalls and rain, mists and streams, rivers and oceans. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the Spirit of water. Now our minds are one. With one mind, we turn to honor and thank all the food plants we harvest from the garden. Since the beginning of time, the grains, vegetables, beans, and berries have helped the people survive. Many other living things draw strength from them too. We gather all the plant foods together as one and send them a greeting of thanks. Now our minds are one. We gather our minds together to send greetings and thanks to all the animal life in the world. They have many things to teach us as people. We are honored by them when they give up their lives so we may use their bodies as food for our people. We see them near our homes and in the deep forests. We are glad they are still here, and we hope they will always be so. Now our minds are one. We turn our thoughts to the trees. The earth has many families of trees who have their own instructions and uses. Some provide us with shelter and shade, others with fruit, beauty, and other useful things. Many people of the world use the tree as a symbol of peace and strength. With one mind, we greet and thank the tree life. Now our minds are one. Now we turn our thoughts to the Creator or Great Spirit and send greetings and thanks for all the gifts of creation. Everything we need to live a good life is here on Mother Earth. For all the love that is still around us, we gather our minds together as one and send our choicest words of greeting and thanks to the Creator. Now our minds are one. We have now arrived at the place where we end our words. Of all the things we have named, it was not our intention to leave anything out. If something was forgotten, we leave it to each individual to send such greetings and thanks in their own way. Now our minds are one.
Thanks. So now we're going to hear some stories. Going to hear some stories from ABI. ABI, I worked with Interfaith Council. We had a presentation there. And I'll have to say, after it, everybody said, wow, ABI was great. All the other of us kind of were there, but it really didn't resonate. So it was really great. Nash organized a climate speaker series at his high school, BHS. Incredible work. The third woman who is going to be here today, Jackie, unfortunately, somebody in her office came down positive test to COVID, and she decided not to come. We talked about it, and we said it wouldn't be good. So I was going to do my own story, but then I read hers, and I said, you got to hear her story. So I'll be reading Jackie's story after ABI and Nash. So thank you both for coming, and I really look forward to hearing you. So ABI, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good morning, everyone. My name is Abi. I'm a junior at West Sound Academy, and I'm here today because I want to share with you the story of how I found my voice to speak up about climate change. I have loved animals since I was a child. Some days after preschool, my parents would take both my brother and I to the aquarium, where I would always go sit by the otter tank and watch them play. I also had a fascination with big cats, such as tigers, lions, and leopards, and the workings of their social systems and lives. At that time, I saw the world as a perfect place filled with all sorts of species coexisting equally with one another. However, with time, as I learned more, I saw the problems that animals face, with a significant number of them being man-made. I understood that there was another reason why I needed to be passionate about animals. Unlike us, these creatures do not have a voice to advocate for themselves, and I realized that I wanted to be their voice. In 2016, I had the opportunity to join a youth ocean conservation organization called Airsura Oceans. The organization provided me with a community of like-minded individuals to find my voice through learning more about animals. For example, I chose to learn about cetaceans, which include dolphins, porpoises, and whales, and their importance in the marine ecosystem and our planet in general. I had the opportunity to study in depth a climate change-related topic through whales and their role as a carbon sink. What this means is that throughout their lives, whales are able to capture carbon dioxide and store it in their bodies, thereby reducing the amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. This means that when we kill whales through commercial whaling practices, not only are we killing a living being, but we are also letting the trapped carbon dioxide escape their bodies and go back up into the atmosphere, further exacerbating our climate issue. When whales die naturally, their bodies become food for innumerable organisms in the ocean naturally as well. My research into cetaceans in this way has made me aware of an important detail concerning our planet's changing climate. And Airstar Oceans gave me the opportunity to present at numerous schools and events where I was able to share my research with others. And I became a voice for the whales, like I always wanted to be. However, that's not the only thing my research did. It also taught me a bigger principle as well, which is to follow the money trail. As I spent more time looking at different cetacean species, the detrimental effects of human interference on our natural ecosystems became a recurring theme everywhere I looked. And I realized that the root cause of many of these problems the species face could be found through following financial transactions or exchanges that happen in the background, away from direct view. The sudden addition of money to my radar also made our systemic problem of greed more recognizable to me. Greed is a constant companion when you're looking at the money trail, a companion who makes us comfortable depleting entire species just to satisfy our wants. I have been fortunate enough to amplify the voices and messages of others and myself through the passion of filmmaking that I have. In 2018, I was able to make a film along with my mother and brother in India, where we met with local village folk and discussed the environmental degradation caused by coal power plants in the area and its impact on their community. That was only the beginning, and in 2020, I was able to create yet another film along with my peers about how my generation in particular is not being educated about and even being misinformed about climate change through our education system. And it was following the money trail that allowed me to understand both of these topics more than just the surface level and dig deeper. I continue to study climate change on my own and other environmental issues, and I'm also fortunate to be a part of the Bainbridge Island chapter of Citizen Climate Lobby, along with Mike and Nash. I am here today, standing with you all, not only as a voice for the whales and other species that I have researched, but also as a voice for the many people who do not have one, like the village folk in India who I mentioned, or peers my age who are being misinformed about such crucial topics of importance like climate change. My journey has helped me understand that we are going to need many solutions to tackle our climate problem, and that maybe if I do my part as a citizen of this world, I can also be a part of this critical change. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, thank you all for coming today. My name is Nash and I'm currently a senior at Bainbridge Island High School. I'm extremely grateful to Mike for inviting me here for the opportunity to speak about climate change. Mike and I met through the local chapter of a national organization called Citizens Climate Lobby, which focuses on the federal passage of a carbon fee and dividend through citizen action and engagement from people like you and I. I don't know how much you all have been following the news recently, but today that carbon fee legislation is just one man away from inclusion in the Build Back Better bill, which has been sent to the Senate. Unfortunately, considering that all of us live in Washington, I think it's more important to talk about all the other ways it's possible to make a difference that don't rely on one man from West Virginia. Climate change is a huge and multifaceted problem, and while that makes it intimidating, it also means there are a multitude of ways for dedicated individuals to make a difference. I myself began by simply joining the local chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby and showing up to the monthly meetings without much direction. It took me a few meetings to realize I wanted to bring the issue to a realm that really mattered to me, high school. I think most high schoolers are familiar with the feeling that their whole life revolves around that one building, their education, their social life, their extracurriculars. I guess I decided, why not throw climate change into the mix? So with Mike's help, I assembled a roster of 4 speakers and got in touch with the school about hosting 1 speaker a month throughout the end of the school year. They agreed, and across the 4 virtual events, 250 students and staff attended to hear about mitigation planning, adaptation planning, carbon credits, and the effects of climate change on our very own island. My introduction to the adaptation speaker, a scientist named Laura Hansen who lives on the island, led me to join her nonprofit called EcoAdapt as an intern. As an intern, I've helped them plan and prepare for multiple climate change adaptation forums across the country, informing city governments and citizens how best to react to the effects of climate change. Throughout all of this, my greatest challenge has been staying optimistic about the prospect of real change. Like I said before, climate change is a huge and multifaceted problem, and that often makes me feel like things are out of my control. I've asked myself more than once, what's the point of doing all this stuff if the final say on much of it rests on a senator from West Virginia? I'm perfectly happy not living in West Virginia 99% of the time, but being able to influence Senator Manchin's opinion as his constituent probably makes up all of the other 1%. Jokes aside, while the government has recently passed useful provisions for climate change, the inability to go all the way is weighed upon my mind. That's why I think it's important for everyone who cares about climate change and wants to take action on it to find something they can do that's completely in their control, to avoid the feeling of being pushed around by outside forces. That's why I would encourage every one of you in the audience to make one small change in your lifestyle, even if that just means eating more chicken and less beef or setting up a carpool with your friends. To go further, you can join an organization that matters to you. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing new faces at Citizens Climate Lobby meetings if that's what you decide on. And as a congregation, there are countless ways to make a significant difference at the local level. Of course, hosting this event is undoubtedly a great first step. Thank you all for having me today.
Well, folks, here's the future. This is what gives me hope. So, as I said, Jackie wasn't able to make it, and I talked to her, and we agreed that I would read her report. Not as good as her being here, but again, I wanted to provide her voice here through me. So this is from Jackie Schaff. Why do I care about climate change? Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me today. My name is Jackie, and I'm a graduate student at the University of Washington in the School of Marine and Environmental Affairs. I grew up in Washington and spent much of my time in and around Puget Sound. And as I am sure many of you can relate to living here, it is just so hard not to fall in love with it. I was so enamored by the marine world that I went on to study marine science. And throughout many of the classes, professors would list ways off that climate change is currently and projected to influence the oceans and marine life. There was so much talk about the impacts of climate change. And when you are constantly bombarded with nothing but the bad, you start to develop this massive sense of helplessness. And it drives you to disassociate from the problem at hand. You feel like you can't do anything and you turn numb. And I sat in these classes, taking notes on ocean acidification and sea level rise. You could see the utter look of defeat on everyone's face. When class was over, we would all close our notebooks and go our separate ways. No one wanted to talk about climate change. And we have our own Fran Corton, who coined the term, an issue too big to talk about. Isn't that what you said, Fran? Anyway, I stole that, and I do credit you when I say that, Fran. Anyway, back to this. It had such a negative and depressing connotation. In psychology fields, one really up-and-coming point of discussion is on something called eco-anxiety, or the persistent anxiety and worry when thinking about the future of this planet. And I'm sure many of you here can relate, that fear of environmental doom. And I can tell you this is something I really struggled with throughout my education and even still today. Those classes where I learned about nothing but how the marine animals I grew up loving were in trouble because of climate change made me feel horrible. I went on to graduate school and quickly learned that many of my peers feel the exact same way. So that is why I am here today, why I continue to be a part of climate change actions. To me, it made sense quite early on that scaring everyone into caring about climate change is absolutely not going to work. There must be another way. And I think the way is through the narrative. Start talking about the solutions. So what can we do? What can we do individually, but also as a greater community? Because these feelings of eco-anxiety and pessimism when thinking about the state of the future planet, as I have learned, can be fought off really well when we work together. So what am I doing for climate change? For some climate change nerds like me, you may have heard about Katharine Hayhoe. She is a major climate scientist and a fundamentalist Christian who says, as challenging, stressful, and painful as it might be, addressing climate change begins by actually talking about it. And that is my kind of mantra. So in graduate school, I've become really interested in communicating climate change. And I'm focusing on community climate mitigation and adaptation solutions. This is what has led me to currently work with Bainbridge and Mike, I guess that's me, and the city's Climate Change Advisory Committee to communicate and implement the city's climate action plan. I don't think that when someone says climate change, we are immediately supposed to feel scared and anxious and totally out of control. I think we are supposed to feel hopeful and feel like, yes, we can do something about it. And solving our climate crisis is also this incredible opportunity to address so many other inequities in our world. Because climate change affects all of us differently, often disproportionately, often impacting marginalized communities far more. So I think of the climate crisis as always an opportunity to address and heal injustices. It's an opportunity to live in a better world, to get really cheesy. So what can the congregation do? I believe everyone here already has their reasons why they care about climate change. So I'm not trying to convince anyone to care. We are all concerned and alarmed. I personally don't think we need more science. We don't need more evidence that climate change is happening. We don't need more jargon-heavy reports. I think that what we need is more conversations. And I think these conversations should focus on what we can actually do. And your climate action plan on Bainbridge Island is a wonderful place to start. And you are all already here because you have a set of shared values. You are an important part of this community. And I think you can start conversations on climate change and keep the conversations going. No one is motivated by fear. But I think what can motivate people is by talking about what you are doing as an individual, as a family, and as a broader community to take on climate change. Share your successes and your solutions and your actions to motivate others to do the same. Continue to share that hope for a better future and the excitement that addressing climate change solutions can get us there is the most important. I don't go to graduate school every day totally in despair about climate change. I am hopeful and encouraged by those who put in the work around me. I get encouraged when I see others taking action, like the other speakers here, Abi and Nash. So my ask for you is to please, please keep talking. Please keep the conversations going. Thank you, Jackie, if you're listening.
This is hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
Thank you, Grace. That was great. So where in the heck do we go from here? So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about what's broader going on in the community, but then really get down is what can we do? Other than just chatting and yakking about it, what can we do as a congregation? And just in the city of Bainbridge Island, some of you might not be aware, they passed a climate action plan a while ago, and they actually hired a person, a human being, to implement the climate action plan. There's no other community in this country that I know, I'm sure there is, but I don't know, who has hired a person full-time of our size to deal with climate change. So to me, that sends a signal that it's the city doing it, but it's our community. It's us who are going to do this. That person, Autumn, is there to help, but it's us. We have an opportunity. And we have some great work going on. We have Fran, who's working on a sustainable transportation plan, and others in this room are working to figure out how we get people out of their cars and in by creating biking and walking routes that are accessible to all people. We have a green building task force that's trying to figure out how the heck we can reduce our energy in our homes, how we can provide incentives for families that don't have the means to do that. They just passed a plastics ordinance. Plastics generate enormous amounts of greenhouse gases and cause enormous harm to those people down generally Louisiana, kind of Cancer Triangle down there. Sandy knows about that. So, what can we do? What can we do here in our congregation? So I'm going to talk about three things I think we can do. First, kind of going to John says, we can figure out what our carbon footprint is and do something about that. I'll talk more about that. The second, we can engage in our community. And the third, I'd love to form a cadre of folks here who can help make that happen. So let's start with the carbon footprint. So what I'd like to propose the first of the year is to have workshops, in person and small workshops, maybe 5-6 people, workshops in person and virtual, where we go over what your carbon footprint is and come up with real solutions for you. Because everybody's solutions are going to be different. Everybody starts at a different place. So I want to do that. I'm committed to do that, and I hope other people would join me in doing that. Because I think we can really start showing a difference here in our congregation. The second, engage with the community. To engage with the community. And to start, Interfaith Council, I went to them and asked them if they'd form a climate subcommittee. And they seem that they want to, and in early December I'll go to hopefully formalize that. And so why is that a big deal? For me, that's a big deal because the ask to them is to identify somebody from each congregation to join a team that can then work with those congregations, that can bring speakers into their congregations, and then can write editorials, which I understand in the past Interfaith Council has done, write editorials to the papers and other things to show that we, as different groups of faith folks, can talk in one voice on issues, whether that's climate change or it's homelessness or it's racial and social equity. We got to do that. We got to get out in the community, and people really want that. That's what I've heard from people. We need to get out in the community. Second thing we can do is sponsor events. And there are people doing that already. A number of people here do that, but we can sponsor movies, workshops. We can do that. So that's the first thing. Second thing, engage with the community. And the third is to develop this cadre of members and seaters who really want to do something. And if we come together with 6 or 7 of us, I think we really can make a difference. And I think we can send a signal to the other congregations that we're serious. And I know Grace, I know Eagle Harbor, Kol Shalom. There are congregations that want to do it, but there's no leadership to do it. We can provide that. So in closing, as a number of people have said very eloquently, talking about climate change can be kind of depressing. But you know, if we don't have hope, then in my mind, why are we doing this? And so I wanted to quote a famous, who I call Mr. Hope, and it's not Bob Hope that some of you might think about, but this person said, "Hope is that thing inside of us that insists, despite all the evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits. That something better awaits us if we have the courage to reach for it, to work for it, and to fight for it." Anybody know who that is? Former President Barack Obama. And I, for one, am willing to reach for it, to work for it, and to fight for it. How about you? So, I guess we're done. So, I'm going to extinguish our, hold on a second. So yeah, if you would rise and repeat after me. And those out in the audience, virtual, you can stand too if you're watching virtually, just to mimic what we're doing here. So we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So I wanted to thank all of you. I've been a worship associate for over 3 years now, and I see lots of fellow worship associates, former, what do you would call it? What's the word when you're recovering worship associates out here? So this is going to be my last opportunity to be a formal worship associate here. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to have been a worship associate. I've learned a lot. And we need more worship associates. So I just want to close by reminding everybody that as you depart today, you know, we're still in some challenging times. And you know the reasons for it. And so I just ask you to, when you're dealing with each other and your friends and your family and our community, be patient, have grace, and come from a place of love. Be safe. So Tom will lead us out, and I want to thank everybody, Tom, and Grace, and Carol Ann, and John, and Nash, and Abby, and Jackie, and everybody who made this work. So Tom, take us out.